Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Sattology means a science of truth or study of truth. And opposite of that is mythology, which means science of myth, fake, lie, imagination. And unfortunately, any of the Western academic scholars don't use the word mythology for their own history. They reserve the word mythology for ancient Indian history, ancient South American history, and also ancient European history, and also ancient Native American history, like who were the first Americans. Well, people do not know that the first nation of Iroquois gave the constitution of US to Americans. And in turn, the European settlers in USA gave them citizenship in 1924. That's the irony of the whole thing. So that's why I always say that the Vedic history or the ancient Indian history is Sattology, not mythology. So I have a very, very special guest, Professor KG Suresh, joining us. He's a Vice Chancellor of Makhanlal University in India, in Bhopal, and a very famous person at a very key position. And he has agreed to join us today. So without delay, let us welcome Shri Professor KG Suresh.
Thank you. Greetings from Asia's first journalism university and the beautiful lake city of Bhopal in central India.
Thank you so much, Professor Suresh. And one thing I must say, Bhopal is a very beautiful town, a city of lakes, right?
Yes.
It's a very beautiful town. So so you're in the heart of India. So does it
Yes.
mean that you also are the heart of the India?
Nice one. Well, absolutely. We represent the heart of India, the heartbeat of India.
Yeah. So you are working in a very important area today in terms of history and education. Now, what is your viewpoint in one of the there are a lot of journalism people talk about, and generally journalism is now associated with only reporting bad news, and we see everywhere it's all working on making money out of a sad story. But in terms of the ancient history of India, it's all about great literatures or great scriptures, Shastra, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Itihas, all these different wonderful India has given to the world. Now, how does the information from those Shastra play a role in journalism today?
Okay. Nice one. Uh, you know, in journalism, unfortunately, are no doubt that in India, media has played a very critical role right from pre-independence day to the building of the modern India. No doubt about it. But over the years, we have seen a depolarization on ideological and political lines, and that has led to, you having more of activists than journalists, whereas we need more of activists, not activists, in journalism. So, unfortunately, most of the journalists, particularly in English media, came from or come from in the past as well, and come from in the present as well, from the English medium schools, wherein everything Indian is considered to be inferior and everything Western is considered to be fashionable and superior. And it's a colonial mindset, the hangover of the British Raj continues. And we still, there are a lot of people who still think that, but for the British, we would not have been a nation itself. There are people who believe in that. And they also tend to look at a lot of our history as mythology, as you rightly pointed out. Uh, and they have been dominating all these years for almost 6 to 7 decades. They have been dominating the public discourse, the narrative in this country. But slowly but steadily, it is changing. But I won't say that everything has changed. But yes, at least a lot of younger people are having a relook. And I'm really delighted to see that they feel that no, it's not, the way things have been projected over all these years, it's not been that bad. I'll give you an instance. This is just a latest example. One of the leading journalists was participating in a webinar with me, and there, we were discussing fake news, fake narratives, and she said that the first fake narrative or the fake news was from India itself. I was shocked. She said, well, in India, we had this instance of Yudhishthira, King Yudhishthira of the Pandavas, telling the Guru Dronacharya that about his son Ashwatthama's death. So that was fake news. I pitied that person. I had to counter that person by saying that, first of all, it's very strange that when it comes to fake news, you have absolutely no qualms in saying that, Yudhishthira was, or that instance was the first fake news. But when there are a section of the people here who say that Narada was the first journalist or the first communicator, you have a problem in accepting that. You consider it as mythology. But when it comes to fake news, you are immediately attributing. That's the first reservation I have. Secondly, I pointed out that you basically do not understand the context of what all happened in the Mahabharata war, wherein, Yudhishthira, despite instructions from the, Lord himself, stuck to his truth. And but only thing is that in the larger interests of dharma, he muted or toned down his complete sentence. That's all what happened. He uttered the truth, but nothing but the truth. He said about Ashwatthama that Ashwatthama hata, which means Ashwatthama has got killed. But in the same breath, albeit in a, I would say, a milder tone, a softer voice, he said, Narova Kunjara. That means it's not the human Ashwatthama who was killed, but the elephant who was killed. And thereby, but at the very word Ashwatthama hata coming from Yudhishthira, Guru Dronacharya threw up his arms and absolutely surrendered. Now, that war itself was in pursuit of truth, in pursuit of dharma. And he here also he did not lie. So there is no question of it being a fake news or fake narrative. So the context, without understanding context, based on half-baked information, people pass judgments, people give their verdicts, and that creates when these, and she's a well-established journalist who is taken seriously by a lot of people. And when she speaks like that before a lot of youngsters, so come to think about the impact. So this is because they are all the products of a Western, that's why the national education policy, which has now come into play, is going to change the way we looked at our own history, our own traditions. So we have a lot of hopes from that, because till now we have been following what we call the Macaulay model, the Lord Macaulay model of, and the Marx model of education.
A nice way to put it. And I think the problem was more on the side of the Dronacharya, because he misunderstood the communication, not on
Yes.
Richard's side. So
Yes.
so in the modern context, and it's a nice opening, because most of the people I have written one book on Narada and one book on Yudhishthir specifically, and m- most of the people misunderstand Narad only as a patrakar, which is a
Yes,
Narada has a much more bigger responsibility, like
absolutely.
in the
But
Mahabharata.
even as a Patrakar, he is not recognized, unfortunately. I mean, they look at him more as a gossip monger, you know,
Exactly.
and somebody who would, kiss and tell, who will go around, telling people, spreading canards, uh, spreading disinformation and misinformation, which he never did. He was the most honest communicator who would
Exactly.
communicate his things as it is without taking any sides. You know, he was
And,
truthful, he was accurate, and he was objective. The three fundamental principles of journalism.
and Narada is more like a sutradhar. He binds things
Absolutely.
together, and less as
Absolutely.
a information sharer. And also his personality in Mahabharata is described as grave, tall, very person who is gambhir in Sanskrit. Grave is a
So in
very bad
Bhagavad
word.
Puran, you have Lord Krishna describing him. He says that among the sages, I want to be like Narad.
Exactly. He
He is
says,
the tallest.
yeah, he's a
He is
they.
the most ideal.
Yeah. And also Mahabharata, he's one of the important re-reciters of Mahabharata also in the
Absolutely.
Devlok also. Now, coming to the point on, you also mentioned a story about that journalist. You said uh, the the most of the Indians do not understand there is a concept of atrocity literature, which is a very common thing in American media, CNN, even Fox News, all these channels. And I'm not party to any one of them, but the point is they regularly write bad news. Narad never gave bad news. He always gave good news. Either he wanted Vishnu to come quickly, or he wanted Vishnu to go back also at the right time, because
Absolutely.
nobody else can communicate. Everyone else is scared. So he's
Yes.
the one who does the difficult work. So, but most of the Western world is built on atrocity literatures. Like, for example, they'll keep on collecting stories. And one of the worst examples is NY Times. And New York Times is one of the
And they have been
biggest
doing it even during this pandemic.
in
The
the
way they
pandemic.
reported India, the way they reported India. I mean, Indians are dying, dying, and dying. I don't know what it means. As if, the rest of the world, I mean, we had a less mortality rate than the United States.
That's right.
In terms of figures, we are still pegged at number three, despite all the poverty, all the, infrastructural shortcomings. We are still way behind US and Brazil.
Yeah. And also, if you look at the per 100,000 population, then the Americans stand at 300 something, and
Yes,
India was 17. So there is no
yes,
comparison. There's no
yes,
comparison at all. But the people
absolutely.
that's why I said the atrocity literature. So that has become the new medium of Western or mythological. I call it mythological fake attacks. And the only reason why people do it is just to make more money. That's what they do. So my question to you is that, so all these factors, like how the in the mass communication, which in your university, do you teach all these different factors, like what are the these are the atrocity literatures being created against economies? So the whole idea is money. So they want to show United States as a perfect heavenly land, where once you land, all problems have vanished, and that is done through media outlets. So do you have enough programs in university to highlight these problems?
Absolutely. I will not say that there are too many programs, but there are a lot of discussions. There are special invites extended to senior journalists, including Indian journalists who are based out of United States to present their side of the story. So there are discussions on how the Western media covered, say, the COVID-19 pandemic in India. What were the factors responsible for that? So there are seminars, webinars which look at how India is seen through the Western prism. whereas the need is to look at the globe. We also need to look at the globe, not through the global prism, but through, or the Western prism, but through our own prism. We need to see from our own lenses. We need to see what's happening in West Asia, what's happening in Russia, what's happening in the United States, what's happening in Europe. We need to look at them not through the Western media, but unfortunately, the information systems globally continue, or the information order continues to be dominated by the West. So, it's important that, developing countries like ours develop their own, communication systems which are independent, which are competent enough. We have a vibrant press, no doubt about it, but we are, a very India-centric media we have got. We don't give. We of course have our own foreign page, our own couple of foreign correspondents, but the way we need to look at the world through Indian eyes, we need to have a lot of focus on, what's happening in the West. I mean, like every country has its own global channel. I mean, America has CNN, Britain has BBC, France has France 24, Russia has Russia Today, China has CCN. But we as a nation, as a subcontinent, the seventh largest in size, the second largest in population, I think we also ought to have our own global media platforms.
You raised a very important point. Yes, it is definitely needed. The yoga, meditation, and especially Ramayana and Mahabharata, these are most of the Western, if you look at the Western philosophers, they quote on Indian scriptures, most of them, because they do not find anything worthwhile to discuss on their own. So you'll have a famous Hindu studies dean of a major university writing a commentary on Ramanujacharya, but they won't write anything on St. Peter's or anyone else because there is nothing much there. People do not know, most of the Indians do not know that he was hung upside down from one leg until he bled through his brain. And that is in the middle of the Vatican. Now, but most of them will write stories about atrocities on Indian caste system and all those things, and which is totally misinformed. And like you correctly said, there is a need for India to rebut this, not for Americans, because Americans are going to continue what they're standing for, or all Western universities. Earlier, Europe used to be independent, but now America is the leading one. And so narrative setting is the responsibility from India, not from the others. It's just the way language, the Indians have generally higher IQ than rest of the world because of the language, Sanskrit-based language. What is your view on that?
No, absolutely. I totally agree that, a totally a concept where, every projection is that, you have, I have friends, Indian friends, women academicians who say that when they travel abroad, they are asked questions like, do you have the choice to, select your own husbands, very, and they forget that, we have centuries of history wherein we had queens who had reigned over this country, women who had ruled this country. We had saints like, Gargi, who we have a long list of, people who were sages and saints, women who were there. We, talk about caste system. We forget that, our greatest epic, Ramayana is written by Valmiki, who does not fit into that caste narrative. The most popular deity whom we all love the most is Krishna. From Kashmir to Kanyakumari to across the globe, thanks to ISKCON and other institutions, the most loved Hindu deity, if one may say, he, if you look at through the caste, prism, belongs to the other backward community, the Yadava. So this is ridiculous, that you talk about, if indeed it was so caste-ridden a society, why should the Brahmins and the so-called upper caste be worshipping the Chaturvarnas, be worshipping, somebody who is backward. I mean, I don't know what all stuff has been, dished out as, Indian reality, as harsh Indian truths, and unfortunately, a large section of Indian society too started believing in that. That's the sad part of the story. I'm not saying that there have not been aberrations. They have taken place across the globe. Aren't they continuing to be happening in America, where you see blatant cases of, racist racial prejudices, which are so openly seen? So that, of course, but over the years, perhaps no other community, in the world has believed in coexistence as we have. We are born multicultural. We don't have to be taught multiculturalism. We were born like that. We have been. I mean, this has been home to India. Has been the home to all the religions for centuries, and not necessarily all of them came through. Only what do you invasions. Many of them came, settled down. You have so many instances. The Zoroastrians who came and settled down, in Gujarat. The beautiful story is, when they asked, the king said that, how can you come from a foreign land with a foreign culture? How can you settle here? So the Zoroastrian leader at that time said that we would like to merge with the rest of the Indian society, like sugar merges with milk, and I think that they continue to be that sweetness of the Indian milk. The Zoroastrians, the Parsis, as we call them today, they are perhaps the most progressive community who have immensely contributed, notwithstanding the fact that they are a minuscule minority. The same holds true for the Jewish who came to India and settled down following the, after the fire at the Solomon Temple in Jerusalem. And they came and settled down here. And for centuries, there have been some of our leading Indo-Anglian poets, some of our leading, military leaders have been from the Jewish community. The Baha'is, the latest, I would say that migrants, I would say, they have come here, they have prospered. Some of their most beautiful temples, including the Lotus Temple in the heart of our national capital, New Delhi, is one of the most beautiful structures. So India has always believed in the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that the entire universe, not just world, not just humanity, but the whole world is one community. So I think that multiculturalism, or diversity, we don't need to really teach our students. Every day, every few miles, it is said that we see a change in language, in dialect, in the way people dress up. So we are used to diversity. So I think that when they talk about divisions, homogeneity, and all that stuff, it is so alien to us in India. We are used to it in our. It's very much integral to our lives.
You made some very good points here, very powerful points, and the biggest rebuttal is caste is not an Indian word, came from Portuguese casta. So,
Yeah.
and also in the American literature now, I saw in San Diego University, they organized an event, Black History Month. They said the European upper caste enslaved the American African lower caste. They mentioned that actually, one of the sessions. I was part of that. Now, another question, you made a very important point. These you laid out all these stories of different stories, but these are not in the Indian textbooks, which you are telling us is not in the Indian textbooks. Textbooks still show the Romila Thapar's version and other Irfan Habib's version. So they are and they are Padma Shris and Padma Bhushans, very famous titles. Nowadays they lost the relevance because of such people, but they are. And the another one is the Oxford credentials. Now, very few Indians know Oxford is the place where the bulls used to cross a river, and while doing that, they'll produce a they'll produce all the excreta, gobar we call it in India. That Oxford is the place of that. That's what the English meaning of that is. But the credentials of Oxford have become more important in India than other credentials, like you initially mentioned also. So, do you think there is a need to now Indian universities to start rating American universities on the academic side?
Yes, absolutely. A process has already been started, not at the government level. There is an organization of which I am also part of, which is called the Bharatiya Shikshan Mandal, which has started the ratings for both Indian universities and internationally. And I hope it takes off, because all through we have been talking about global rankings, but what is the basis of those rankings? And particularly coming from the mass communication sector, sometimes I really wonder, we are the world's largest democracy. We are an island of democracy in an ocean of dictatorships. In our neighborhood, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is the other countries around us, you find democracies falling apart from time to time, military taking over. But in India, democracy is deeply rooted, because it's not a gift from the British. We have been democrats, from the time of Lichavis, centuries back. We have had the concepts of republics, and from there we have been a democratic, society all through, where we used to have the ministerial councils, the interaction with, we used to have the leading universities from Takshashila to Nalanda to Bodhagaya, where to Vikramashila, where it is the teachers who used to guide the kings, whether it is the case of Chanakya and Chandragupta Maurya. So we have had these democratic norms which have been followed for centuries. So we are a deeply democratic people, and we gave in our constitution, right from the time it came into force, we had given equal, the universal adult suffrage, the franchise to all citizens. You look at some of the Western countries where women had to really struggle for decades to get their right to vote, which they did not have. But in our constitution, whether you are literate or illiterate, every Indian citizen, male, female, irrespective of their gender, we gave them the constitutional rights, which no other country gave without a lot of struggle. So we have had these credentials for a long time, these democratic credentials. But unfortunately, the way things have always been portrayed, things have been blown out of proportion. Mountains have been made out of molehills, and it's as if, in India itself, nobody took seriously that there was one news item which was laughed off by most Indians themselves, that you can cure COVID with cow dung. Nobody took it seriously. Indians are a lot more scientific, have their scientific temperament. We were the first to give zero to the world. We had the greatest of physicists and surgeons, when I would say the Western civilizations had not even woken up. We had Sushruta, who spoke about the most intricate of surgeries, the treatment methods. You had the Charaka Samhita, the Charaka who talked about how to treat patients. Now these happened centuries back. We had much before, long time back. We had Aryabhata, the leading scientist who talked about astronomy, who talked about space science. So this was the kind of knowledge which we had pursued till the we had the invaders coming from the western front, from the Khyber Pass. Then of course mediocrity started setting in. All libraries like Nalanda were burnt down. Thousands, they were left burning for months together, the library at Nalanda. And that is why at my new campus in Makhanlal, which is coming up on the outskirts of Bhopal, we have a huge library, and I have decided to name it as Nalanda Library. So this is the kind of legacy that we had. This is something which we need to impart to our younger generation, and the West should also know it. And as you rightly pointed out, we had these historians who presented a very, very skewed, interpretation of history, wherein we were shown as, obscurantist and outdated, and the Western, the invasions which came from the West and also from Europe were projected as the saviors, the redeemers, without whom perhaps we would not have been what we are today. I think that's the unfortunate part, and it's important that we rediscover, our glorious past to make our future also glorious.
You made some very important points, and you used a very good words also, obscurantist. I love that. And the one of the things which comes to is the problem of Western accreditations. And many of the professors are also watching. American professors are also watching right now, and which is a major folly. Like, for example, if an Indian university competes to get a Harvard tie-up, for example, just an example, then what happens is they have to buy in the Harvard's mindset also. And Harvard's mindset, and we have a very functional club. Now, Harvard's mindset is to promote a Western control over the mindset of others. So all the courses are designed accordingly. So they want to keep the American exceptionalism alive. And that's their agenda. And all the programs and everything. And you'll be surprised, and you probably know more than me, that more Indians know about America more than more Americans know about India.
Absolutely.
Indian can quote highway numbers also. I've seen, I was so shocked. I was not knowing them. That he knew the highway numbers also in which state it passes through. But American will not know anything about India. The point is very simple. The philosophy is, if you control the minds, you control the business. That's the end game, right? From British colonialism to colonialism, the source is the European mindset. There is the Spaniards destroyed Filipino history completely, including the language they wiped out. And we all know what Portuguese have done to Brazil. All those colonized countries are still poor. They cannot get up. Whether it's a Islamic colonialism, it was also colonialism, fascism, or it's a Western church-based colonialism, but they all destroyed the identity. Now, when the identity is lost, you cannot create a new product. Innovation is also gone. So it is, you very rightly said, the ruling the mindset destroys the very essence of that society. And that's why you quoted some examples in the neighborhood of India. Their identity is Hindu, but they're colonized with a, like if I ask a Pakistani American, where you from? They'll say we are Iraqi descent. Now Iraq is a failed country also, so it doesn't mean anything for us. So what we should do, or what we are doing to remove this mindset of looking to the West for approvals or gathering accreditation. Accreditation is a way of, like if I go to a cat and ask cat to divide a bread, we have seen that famous story, and it's not going to happen. It's going to get unequally divided. What is the what are we doing to oppose it right now or counter it?
I'm glad that you asked that question. I think that, as I said, over the last 6, 7 decades since independence, we have been absolutely following that, policy of, recognition from the West. I mean, it's strange that, you refer to one of the greatest dramatists of all times, Kalidasa, as India's Shakespeare. I mean, I have never understood Kalidasa's comprehension, his understanding of Indian society, his understanding of theater was so complete. But still, I sometimes wonder why Shakespeare is not called the Kalidasa of the West. But surprisingly, we tend to get this certification from the West. West has said this, so that means I mean, we have beautiful places. I mean, like Kashmir is one of the most beautiful places on earth. But we still call Kashmir as India's Switzerland. I don't know why Switzerland is not called Europe's Kashmir. That's been beyond. Similarly, I come from this very small but beautiful town in the southern state of Kerala, which is called Aleppi, or Alappuzha, as we call it in our language. Now, Aleppi is called the Venice of the East. I don't know why Venice is not called Aleppi of the West. These are certifications for whether it is human beings or places. We tend to, get so much of happiness when we get that certification from even today, and that mindset continues. Our own homegrown vaccines, anti-COVID vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines like Covaxin, which has been developed by India. Now, Covaxin, we are often reading news reports that Covaxin, yes, is yet to get Western certification, Western node. European countries are still not ready to give it the approval. Now, so we are looking for approvals, we are looking for research, approvals, recognition from the West before we accept. For us, AstraZeneca or a Pfizer vaccine or even a Sputnik from Russia would be more acceptable than our own Covaxin, which has been found to be, very, very effective even against the Delta Plus variant in studies both at home and abroad. But we are constantly looking for Western approvals. So this is a result of that, colonial mindset, that colonial hangover, and I think that will take some time for us, because our textbooks by and large are still the Western textbooks. Our references are still from the West. Now, we teach, for example, in my own journalism university, communication theories. So, for us, the reference still begins with from Marshall McLuhan to, all the theories of the communication theories, mostly from the West. When I was the Director General at the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, which is India's premier media training institute, I introduced, Indian communication models. I said that, no, please go ahead, teach them Western communication models, but also teach them Indian communication models, which are much more suitable to our way of, thinking. And that is when Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra started being taught at our institute, which We are now teaching at our university also, and we are working on Indian communication models, right from Mahabharata and Ramayana to Mahatma Gandhi, who was one of the most powerful communicators in the world, to Swami Vivekananda. So I think that these were the most powerful communicators in the world, and I think that we need to teach our students of the power of communication, which we have. The legacy of communication that we have had for centuries, rather than being just dependent or being taught only the Western communication models. The same holds true for all disciplines. So long as that continues, there is a huge section which continues to believe that all the knowledge came from the West. So we need to relook at our not just our goalposts, so to say, but also our beacon lights. Whether we are following the right path. We need to understand that I am totally open to studying the Western, the European, the West Asian. I have no issues, but I believe in what Mahatma Gandhi said. He said that let winds blow from all directions into my room. I want the doors and windows to be open, and let winds come from all directions. But I have to stand firmly on my ground. I have to ensure that I don't get blown away by that, those winds. So let the winds, let the windows and doors be opened. But I have to ensure that my education system keeps me strongly rooted in the ground, and that I don't get blown away by the winds that come from the windows and the doors.
What a great quote you made of Mahatma Gandhi, and it's one of the icons in the West on India. And one of the things which is generally told, you also mentioned, yes, on the human rights front, India has been a very big leader, because even Americans have used heavy force, including depleted nuclear weapons, on their own people. And I'm not talking about much far, in 1980s. If anyone wants to check it out, they can check it out. That incident happened in Texas. Now, the in terms of human rights and also the other things which the West accuses India of, and particularly they accuse Hindu Americans, not India generally, because it's a sovereign nation. So generally all the attacks come to Hindu Americans like me and other people. And but the American textbooks, they follow Indian textbooks. So they try to comply, but at the same time, there is a recent attempt. So what Herbert Hope Risley did in India in 1901 by institutionalizing caste system, European caste system. It's not Indian. India is a Varna-based system. But they are doing the same thing in the US now. California has a law presented where they want to recognize upper caste and lower caste for Hindu Americans only in American universities and American corporations, including private corporations. It will become under the racism aspect. Now, I have not seen any counter to that from the Indian state or the Indian education ministry yet, because Indians are 6 million, generally 6 million, but there are 50 million Americans who practice yoga, believe in reincarnation, and believe in karma. One of my books is Karma is a Bitch, and which I wrote for Americans, it's a complete science of karma. So don't you think there is a responsibility of Indian academics like yourself, because academics drive the conversation, it's not the other way around, and it's a big responsibility on the shoulders of academics to counter this narrative from India and de-recognize such states in America which are reintroducing colonial concepts and also teaching wrong history from an ulterior political motive.
I absolutely agree, and I think that the process has already begun in India. we have already started talking about decolonization in a big way. And the first step that we are taking in our respective universities is that we are, very clear about one thing that may seem very insignificant, but, you know, the way, Indian history or our epics are being treated as mythology in the West. Similarly, there has always been an attempt to equate Indian words, with Western words. We have been trying to find equivalence. For example, one such example is dharma. Uh, you know, you talked about caste and varna. Now, caste is different, varna is different. Similarly, we all along we have been talking about ever since independence. In the new post-colonial narrative, we have been talking about dharma being a religion, whereas dharma is, righteousness, the path of righteousness. The Mahabharata or the Ramayana was about a dharmic war, where, we are looking at dharma. So it's not about believers and non-believers. An adharmi is a person who does not believe or does not follow the path of righteousness, does not follow the duties ascribed to him. For us, that is the concept that we have believed in. But unfortunately, in India, dharma has come to be identified with religion, which is absolutely, audacious. It's just not acceptable. You are talking about pantha. So the correct. So there is a serious effort that's now being made, wherein we are now, saying that please be very careful about words. What is the kind of words that you use? So religion is dharma is not a religion. You can call it pantha. Similarly, secularism. Secularism have always been talked about as dharma nirpekshata. Now, dharma nirpekshata means sans religion. Now, that is not the meaning. When you talk about dharma nirpekshata, I mean, even Gandhiji has said that you cannot think about, politics without religion. That's what he said. But here we are talking about righteousness. How can a society be sans righteousness? But we have been talking about dharma nirpekshata, whereas the right word should have been sarva pantha samabhava, equality, equal treatment of all religions, of people belonging to all religions. That's sarva pantha samabhava. But we have been looking at all religions with, equanimity, whereas we have been using the term dharma nirpeksha. So we have to be very, and that is where a real effort is being made. We are now telling our students that yoga is not just physical exercises. Yoga is to add, and that is to bring value to your life. It's about a life. It's about a way of life. It's about spirituality. It is about the food you eat. It's about the way you behave with others in society, the way you conduct yourself. So yoga is not just physical exercise as it was projected. So we are trying to define a lot of things. In public discourse also, you will be surprised, and social media is an indicator of how things are changing. That earlier, whenever we would come across news items of any death, the natural tendency of every educated Indian was to say RIP, or rest in peace, which is basically a Christian terminology. But today, you go to Facebook, you go to any social media, you would always find most of the people writing underneath an obituary, Om Shanti, Om Shanti instead of rest in peace. So things are changing. Mindsets are changing. We are no more, we don't say God bless, we say God's bless. So I think that things are changing. Once we change, like Gandhiji said that, be the change that you want to see in others. So I think that we need to change first, then we can change the world. And I think that is the spirit with which Indian academicians are working.
Great answer, and the great points you made, Professor. So one of the last points in this session, I would like to say is, and I would like to take your view also. Secularism word was anti-church. Word is anti-church, not anti any other faith. And you rightly said many of the English words have no, Sanskrit words are far more deeper, like you said, dharma, and much more deeper. They have no translation in English language. And when you're writing a book, then only you realize that yes, it is, there's no direct translation. And also dharma and karma are becoming buzzwords in USA also now, gradually being used by the Christians also. And so there is enough, like I say, Sanatan Dharma is the most well documented culture of the planet. And you quoted Vasudeva Kutumbakam, because Sanatan Dharma is for the entire humanity, not just for Hindus. Even others need it. Now, so secularism word was anti-church, to keep church out of the power. That was a, and any country which has kept church out of the power is successful today. Look at USA, church is not in the power. They say just to lips, it's a lip service by Americans also to their own people. It's a Judeo-Christian country, it's a lip service. UK, France, all these countries who are powerful, there the church is outside of the governance. Now, when it comes to Japan, Japan is a Sanatan Dharmic country. It's their culture comes from Kerala, and Bodhisattva and all those, their culture comes from Kerala, and they were Murugans worship, samurais, the Murugans worshippers. Now, the original cultures or successful countries today have maintained their original identity. Vietnam, Japan, and and other countries have kept church out. Now, this is the what we can see outside. For India to become a leader again, or in terms of I'm only talking about economics here now. They have to go back to the roots, because they cannot bring innovation without the original thought. One way is to become Chinese, copy everything, plagiarize everything, but that is not a long-term solution. The day America turns off the nozzle of the tap, China is finished. All the money is coming from USA for that. So how important is for economic resurgence of India to bring back the old Sanatan Dharma concepts from Mahabharata, Ramayana, and teachings of Narada to Yudhishthir, all these different cultures, to gain back the economic control of the world.
Absolutely. It's important that we change the narrative. That sense of that pride in being what you are, that's very important. What does it mean to be a Hindu? Or a Sanatana Dharmi is something that we need to be aware of. And that's what I think the responsibility of academicians are. I am liked and hated, loved and hated at interfaith conferences. When I go and the usual narrative have always been that of, oh, we are all one and the same. And I would say that I would be the dissenter. I would say, no, you are different. I'm different. We are not one and the same. You're different. We are different. We think differently. It's not just about rituals. It's about the entire concept of the world. I don't have a heathen in my dictionary. I don't have a kafir in my dictionary. I don't have. I have given enough freedom to my people, wherein it's up to them whether to go to the temple. No, they don't want to go to a temple. They want to worship or not. They can even choose their god, Ishtadev. That's the freedom that I have given. I've seen no other religion which gives you so much of freedom. We don't have anything. You want to give whatever you want. I mean, there's no rule. There's no fee. There's no zakat. There is nothing that you are, bound. There is no foundation. There's no foundation. We don't have a record in our churches and in our temples like church has, the mosque has, of the faithful. We don't have a list of the faithful. So you are free. You are born free, and that's why we say that everybody is born Hindu. Later on, they are either circumcised or baptized. So we are all born like that. So this entire concept is different. So what we say is that, you are using we have so far been using terms like tolerance, religious tolerance. I think it's time we change all that concept, across the world. What is religious tolerance? Tolerance means, just use it in a slang or colloquial, if I'm talking to you, if I say that I'm tolerating you, how do you look at it? I mean, मैं तुम्हें बर्दाश्त कर रहा हूँ. I mean, imagine. So what is religious tolerance, man? No, there is nothing like religious tolerance. It's about acceptance. You have to accept me. I am accepting you as you are. You have to accept me as I am. And that's what diversity is all about. You not only have to accept the difference, you have to celebrate the difference. That's what it is. It's not about tolerance. So this entire conversation has got to have paradigm shift has to happen, And that is where that sense of pride has to be there. And only when that happens, only then the economic resurgence of the country, the will of the, and that's slowly happening. That sense of pride of being an Indian, the value of the blue passport. We are realizing that as a nation, what it means. When you go to foreign countries, how they treat you, how they look at you, that sense of pride stimulates that passion, that stimulates a lot of energy. It's not through government policies alone that any country in the world can, reach the heights. It is the will of the people. Only that can take you on the path of excellence, And this will comes from a sense of pride, a sense of duty to the motherland. That's what Japan after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it is that duty to the motherland that made them what they are today. And I think it is the same will that will have to be inculcated in each and every Indian. Only then and then will India rise. And that India's rise is bound to happen. It is certain. It's a matter of time. Just wait.
No, absolutely. I totally concur with you, because it's just that we need to change, like you said, put the house in order. And we don't have to wait for that long. We to just start. America has a principle: the duck which quacks the loudest gets a cracker. Now we need to start quacking more. And in a very respectful way, I'm saying, not to demean anyone else, but we need to just speak loudly and claim our heritage. We don't want a American or a European to tell us what, like most of the translations on Mahabharata and Ramayana in American universities are done by Americans. Now, they do the same thing with Thomas Bevan Macaulay did. They put their Abrahamic thoughts into everything as an interpretation, because the biggest disease of Western academics is intellectualism. And intellectualism is an asset as well. It can be an enemy also, because your mind can play in any direction. Mind can be a devil, mind can be a friend, like I said in Bhagavad Gita. So the narrative has to be set by us, not by others, on our culture. And for that, local languages is very important. We are speaking in English just for a foreign audience, but local language development is essential, important, because it changes the way you communicate. Like if you look at Sanskrit, is exactly reverse of English, completely reverse logic. So that is my last point, and would like to add something there, sir.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I mean, that's why the national education policy talks about, giving importance to languages. You know, it's about, right from the primary schooling will only be in the local language, the mother tongue. Because the original thinking, has to be in one's own language rather than a foreign language.
That's right.
English has been in India for a long time, no doubt, but it's not our mother tongue. It's not our language. So, our history, our traditions, uh, our culture, they're deeply embedded in our language. So, if you learn your language, we are not just learning the language, it's our understanding of our religion, our folklore, our history, our culture. So it is so you know intrinsically weaved into the language. So it's important. I totally agree with you, but I'm sure that the day is not far when uh, not just Indians, but the world would be listening in Indian languages.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suresh, for coming on the show and enlightening us. What a wonderful discussion. I love it. And most of the people, if you do not know, the first thing colonials did was to replace the language. The first thing. British did to India, Islamic invaders did Farsi to India, and look at Philippines, look at South America, look at even Pakistan and Bangladesh. All those countries are failed countries. 57 Islamic countries are failed, and almost 100 Christian countries are failed countries. And the only countries which are successful are USA, UK, where religion is nowhere in the governance. And thank you so much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure. I would like to have more discussions on specific topics later on. So,
Thank you.
namaste.
The
And
pleasure was entirely mine. Thank you so much.
thank you. Namaste.
Namaskar.